Carl Jung's The Shadow, written and published by Books Reader. Carl Jung's concept of the shadow stands as one of the most profound and transformative insights in modern psychology. This fundamental archetype represents the hidden aspects of our unconscious mind, parts of ourselves that we have rejected, suppressed, or pushed out of conscious awareness. More than just a personal phenomenon, the shadow is a universal pattern deeply embedded within the psyche of every individual. Jung's exploration of the shadow emerged from his pioneering work in analytical psychology during the early 20th century. Through his research and clinical practice, he discovered that human beings share innate psychological structures that transcend culture and time. These structures, which he called archetypes, shape the way we experience life and influence our behaviors on a subconscious level. Among them, the shadow plays a pivotal role. It is the gateway to self-awareness and the first step toward true psychological integration. Unlike other archetypes such as the anima, animus, or the self, the shadow often reveals itself in personal and immediate ways. It holds not only the darker aspects of our personality, the traits we've learned to label as negative or undesirable, but also hidden strengths, talents, and desires that societal, familial, or cultural conditioning has taught us to suppress. In essence, the shadow is the part of us we have disowned, yet it remains ever present, influencing our thoughts, emotions, and interactions in ways we may not realize. The shadow in culture, myth, and religion. The shadow's universal nature is reflected in ancient myths, religious teachings, and cultural stories across the world. Countless legends depict heroes battling inner demons, confronting their darkness, and emerging transformed. These narratives mirror humanity's deep-rooted understanding of the shadow's existence and its vital role in personal growth. From the concept of original sin in Christianity to the Buddhist idea of delusion, civilizations have long developed their own interpretations of the shadow. Whether through mythology or spiritual philosophy, the message remains the same: the path to enlightenment or self-realization requires facing and integrating the darker aspects of oneself. How the shadow manifests in our lives. One of the most common ways the shadow reveals itself is through projection, a psychological defense mechanism where we attribute our own hidden qualities to others. When we experience intense emotional reactions, particularly negative ones, towards certain people or behaviors, it is often a sign that we are encountering a reflection of our own unacknowledged traits. For example, if someone's arrogance irritates us deeply, it may be because we have suppressed our own assertiveness or confidence out of fear of being judged. Recognizing these projections gives us a powerful tool for self-discovery. Rather than blaming others, we can use these reactions as a mirror to explore our own shadow. The shadow as a path to personal growth. Jung's perspective on the shadow challenges the idea that it is something to be feared or eliminated. Instead, he emphasized its importance in psychological development. The shadow is not just a collection of suppressed negativity, it is also a reservoir of untapped potential, creative energy, and authentic power. Because the shadow is an inherent part of the psyche, it cannot be permanently suppressed or ignored. Attempts to do so often result in it manifesting in unhealthy ways, self-sabotage, emotional repression, or destructive behaviors. The key is conscious integration, which involves recognizing our shadow traits, understanding their origins, and learning how to harness their energy constructively. The shadow in society. The influence of the shadow extends beyond individuals, it shapes entire societies. Political conflicts, cultural tensions, and social divisions often arise from collective shadow projections, where groups externalize their own denied qualities onto others. By understanding this, we can become more aware of unconscious biases and work toward creating a more conscious and integrated world. Embracing the shadow, a courageous journey. Shadow work requires courage, patience, and self-compassion. Facing the parts of ourselves that we've long buried can be unsettling, even painful. However, Jung reminds us that these struggles are not personal failures, they are part of the universal human experience. With a mindset of self-acceptance, we can move through this process with greater ease, ultimately achieving a deeper sense of psychological wholeness. Lesson 1. Become who you are afraid to be. Most people live their lives within invisible barriers of their own making. These self-imposed limitations stem from deep-seated fears about who we truly are, or who we have the potential to become. Stepping into our fullest, most authentic selves requires the courage to confront these fears, embrace self-awareness, and acknowledge uncomfortable truths. Our fear of self-actualization often originates from multiple sources: childhood conditioning, societal expectations, cultural norms, and personal traumas. These influences create a web of self-limiting beliefs that keep us trapped in predictable, yet restrictive patterns of behavior. Many of us subconsciously fear our own power, creativity, or capacity for greatness because embracing these aspects means challenging the status quo and stepping outside of our comfort zones. The role of societal conditioning. From an early age, we are taught what is acceptable, what success looks like, and how we are supposed to behave. These external expectations shape our internal dialogue, creating an inner critic that constantly judges and limits our natural expression. Over time, we learn to suppress the parts of ourselves that don't fit societal molds, leading to a life of self-censorship and unfulfilled potential. Breaking free from these limitations starts with awareness. We must recognize the fears that hold us back and trace their origins. This means questioning the fundamental assumptions we hold about ourselves. Do we avoid leadership roles because we truly dislike them, or because we fear responsibility and visibility? Do we remain in unfulfilling relationships because they bring us happiness, or because we are afraid of being alone? A powerful exercise for self-discovery. One effective way to uncover hidden fears is through visualization. Imagine a life where all limitations, both internal and external, are removed. Ask yourself, what would I do differently? What dreams would I pursue? What qualities would I fully embrace? The immediate resistance or discomfort you feel when contemplating these questions often reveals the exact areas where fear is holding you back. Transforming fear into growth. Overcoming these fears doesn't require dramatic, overnight changes, it's a gradual process. Small, consistent steps toward self-expression, authenticity, and boldness can help dissolve the barriers that once seemed insurmountable. The path to becoming who you are meant to be isn't about erasing fear, it's about moving forward despite it. As you embrace the journey of self-discovery, you will come to realize that the shadow you once feared is actually your greatest teacher, guiding you toward the most authentic version of yourself. Rather than attempting to overcome them all at once, we can start by taking small steps outside our comfort zone. This might mean speaking up in meetings if we fear assertiveness, showing our creative work to others if we fear judgment, or setting boundaries if we fear confrontation. Each small victory builds confidence and erodes the power of our limiting beliefs. Shadow work plays a crucial role in this process. Many of the qualities we fear in ourselves are actually aspects of our shadow, parts of ourselves we've learned to reject or suppress. By acknowledging and integrating these shadow aspects, we begin to access our full range of potential. This might include embracing our ambition if we've been taught it's selfish, or acknowledging our anger if we've learned to always be nice. The transformation that occurs when we become who we are afraid to be is profound. As we release our self-imposed limitations, we discover resources and capabilities we never knew we possessed. Relationships become more authentic, creativity flows more freely, and our professional lives often take unexpected and rewarding turns. Most importantly, we experience a deep sense of liberation and alignment with our true selves. This journey requires patience and self-compassion. It's natural to encounter resistance both from within ourselves and from others who might feel threatened by our growth. The key is to maintain a curious and accepting attitude toward our fears while gradually pushing beyond them. Each step toward authenticity, no matter how small, is a victory worth celebrating. The ultimate goal isn't to become fearless, but rather to develop a healthy relationship with our fears. Instead of letting them dictate our choices and limit our potential, we learn to acknowledge them while moving forward anyway. In doing so, we discover that who we are afraid to be is often who we most need to become. Lesson 2: Embrace your dark side. The concept of embracing one's dark side often triggers resistance and misunderstanding. Many people equate darkness with evil, but this represents a fundamental misinterpretation of the shadow's nature. The dark aspects of our personality aren't inherently malevolent. They're simply parts of ourselves that we've learned to hide, suppress, or deny. When we speak of embracing our dark side, we're talking about acknowledging and integrating those aspects of ourselves that we've pushed into the unconscious. This might include our anger, jealousy, greed, or other emotions and traits that society often labels as negative. These qualities exist within all of us, and denying them doesn't make them disappear. It only forces them to manifest in unexpected and potentially destructive ways. The power of acceptance lies in its ability to transform these shadow aspects from sources of shame into tools for growth. When we accept our full range of emotions and impulses, we gain the ability to channel them constructively rather than allowing them to control us from the unconscious. This doesn't mean acting on every dark impulse, but rather acknowledging their existence and understanding their origins. Integration differs fundamentally from suppression. While suppression pushes unwanted aspects of ourselves deeper into the unconscious, integration involves bringing them into awareness and finding healthy ways to express them. For instance, competitive drives that might manifest as ruthless behavior when suppressed could be channeled into professional achievement when properly integrated. The benefits of acknowledging the shadow are numerous and profound. When we stop expending energy on denial and repression, we free up psychological resources for growth and creativity. This integration leads to greater authenticity in our relationships, as we no longer need to maintain false personas or hide aspects of ourselves from others. It also results in improved decision-making as we become aware of all our motivations, not just the socially acceptable ones. Essential tools for shadow work include journaling, meditation, and active imagination. Journaling provides a private space to explore our darker thoughts and feelings without judgment. Meditation helps us observe our thoughts and emotions without immediately reacting to them, creating space for understanding rather than automatic rejection. Active imagination, a technique developed by Jung himself, involves dialogue with shadow aspects of ourselves, allowing for deeper insight and integration. Art and creative expression can serve as powerful vehicles for shadow work. Through painting, writing, music, or other creative pursuits, we can give form to shadow aspects that are difficult to express in ordinary conversation. These creative activities provide a safe container for exploring and integrating darker elements of our psyche. Dreams also offer valuable insights into our shadow aspects. By paying attention to our dreams, particularly those that disturb or unsettle us, we can gain awareness of shadow material seeking integration. The characters and situations in our dreams often represent aspects of ourselves we haven't yet acknowledged or accepted. Working with the shadow requires courage and compassion. Courage to face aspects of ourselves we've long avoided, and compassion to accept ourselves fully, including our imperfections and darker impulses. This process isn't about becoming perfect, it's about becoming whole. As we embrace our dark side, we often discover that what we feared most about ourselves contains the seeds of our greatest strengths. The anger we've suppressed might fuel our passion for justice. The selfishness we've denied might teach us healthy boundaries. The pride we've hidden might enable us to value our true worth. Through this process of embracing our dark side, we move toward psychological wholeness and authentic living. We become more real, more honest, and paradoxically, more capable of genuine goodness than when we were trying to be only good. This integration allows us to access our full range of human experiences and emotions, leading to a richer, more meaningful life. Lesson 3: Embracing the parts of yourself that you might find unacceptable. The journey of self-acceptance often begins with confronting those aspects of ourselves that we find most difficult to acknowledge. These unacceptable traits can range from anger and jealousy to selfishness and pride, qualities that we've learned to view as negative or shameful through various life experiences and societal conditioning. Many people struggle with accepting these traits because they've internalized messages about what constitutes good versus bad behavior from an early age. Parents, teachers, religious institutions, and society at large all contribute to our understanding of which parts of ourselves are acceptable and which should be hidden away. This creates an internal conflict where we attempt to suppress or deny these aspects of our personality, leading to psychological tension and emotional distress. The cost of denying these unacceptable parts of ourselves is substantial. When we reject certain aspects of our personality, we expend considerable energy maintaining this rejection. This energy could otherwise be used for personal growth, creativity, and meaningful relationships. Furthermore, denied traits often manifest in unconscious ways, leading to projection onto others or unexpected outbursts when our careful control temporarily fails. Creating a safe space for exploring these unacceptable traits is crucial for integration work. This might mean setting aside regular time for self-reflection, journaling, or working with a trusted therapist or counselor. The goal isn't to act out these traits indiscriminately but to acknowledge their existence and understand their origins and potential value. For instance, anger, often considered an unacceptable emotion, can be a powerful indicator of boundary violations or injustice. Jealousy might point to unmet needs or areas where we desire growth. Even traits like selfishness, when examined closely, might reveal a healthy need for self-care that has been neglected. Methods for developing self-acceptance include practicing self-compassion and understanding that having these traits doesn't make us inherently bad people. It's helpful to recognize that every human being contains multitudes, both light and dark aspects, and that this complexity is what makes us whole. Rather than trying to eliminate these traits, we can learn to channel them constructively. Acceptance doesn't mean giving free rein to every impulse. Instead, it means acknowledging these parts of ourselves with curiosity rather than judgment. When we can look at our negative traits with understanding, we often discover that they exist for valid reasons and may even serve important functions in our psychological makeup. The process of embracing unacceptable parts requires patience and gentle persistence. It's natural to encounter resistance, fear, and discomfort along the way. These reactions are signs that we're touching upon significant aspects of our psyche that have long been avoided or denied. Working with these feelings rather than against them becomes part of the integration process. As we become more accepting of our full range of traits and emotions, we often find that relationships with others improve as well. When we're no longer fighting against parts of ourselves, we have more energy and attention available for meaningful connections. We become more authentic in our interactions, less defensive, and more capable of genuine intimacy. The ultimate goal of embracing our unacceptable parts is not to change them, but to understand and integrate them into our conscious awareness. This integration leads to a more complete and authentic sense of self where we can acknowledge our complexity without shame or fear. Through this process, we discover that what we once considered unacceptable may actually hold valuable gifts for our personal growth and development. Lesson 4: The shadow is formed by repressing unacceptable traits. The formation of the shadow begins in our earliest years as we learn to navigate the complex web of social expectations and parental guidance. From the moment we start to understand right from wrong, we begin the process of repression, pushing away parts of ourselves that we believe are unacceptable to others or ourselves. This psychological mechanism serves as both a protective measure and a limiting force in our development. During childhood, we quickly learn which behaviors earn praise and which result in disapproval. When a child expresses anger, jealousy, or selfishness, they often receive negative feedback from their environment. Rather than learning to understand and integrate these natural human experiences, children begin to push these feelings into the unconscious mind, creating the foundation of their shadow. Parents and caregivers, despite their best intentions, play a crucial role in this process. Their own unresolved shadows often influence how they respond to their children's full range of emotional expression. A parent who is uncomfortable with anger might consistently suppress their child's aggressive impulses, teaching them that anger is inherently wrong rather than a natural emotion that requires healthy expression. Society further reinforces this repression through cultural norms, educational systems, and social institutions. Children learn to conform to acceptable behavioral standards, often at the cost of authentic self-expression. The traits deemed unacceptable vary across cultures and time periods, but the mechanism of repression remains consistent. In Western society, for instance, traits like vulnerability in men or assertiveness in women have historically been discouraged, leading to gender-specific shadow formations. The process of repression doesn't stop in childhood but continues throughout adolescence and into adulthood. As we encounter new social situations and professional environments, we continue to adapt by pushing certain aspects of ourselves into the shadow. This ongoing repression creates layers of unconscious material that influence our behavior in ways we might not recognize. The impact of repression extends beyond individual traits to affect entire aspects of personality. Creative impulses, sexual desires, aggressive tendencies, and even positive attributes like leadership abilities or intellectual curiosity can be repressed if they conflict with our learned understanding of what is acceptable. This repression creates an energetic burden, as maintaining these psychological barriers requires constant effort. Understanding how the shadow forms through repression is crucial for the work of integration. Each repressed trait represents a piece of our potential that has been locked away. These traits don't disappear but rather continue to influence our lives through projection, unconscious behavior patterns, and emotional reactions. When we encounter someone who openly expresses traits we've repressed, we might feel unexplained attraction or aversion, a clear signal of shadow material at work. Breaking the cycle of repression requires conscious effort and courage. It involves examining our earliest experiences and understanding how we learn to judge certain parts of ourselves as unacceptable. This process often reveals painful memories and challenging emotions, but it also offers the opportunity for profound healing and growth. The formation of the shadow through repression serves as a reminder that our psychological development is deeply influenced by our environmental conditions. However, as adults, we have the capacity to examine these conditions critically and choose whether to maintain or challenge these learned patterns of repression. By understanding how our shadow formed, we can begin the important work of reclaiming these lost aspects of ourselves and moving toward greater wholeness and authenticity. Recognizing that repression is a universal human experience can help reduce the shame and judgment often associated with shadow work. Everyone carries repressed material shaped by their unique circumstances and experiences. This understanding creates space for compassion, both for ourselves and others, as we work to integrate these repressed aspects of our nature. Lesson 5. The shadow is associated with guilt and shame. The relationship between the shadow and the emotions of guilt and shame runs deep within the human psyche. These powerful feelings often serve as the guardians of our shadow aspects, keeping them locked away in the darker corners of our unconscious mind. While guilt relates to specific actions or behaviors we regret, shame cuts deeper into our sense of self-worth and identity. Guilt can be a constructive emotion when it guides us toward ethical behavior and helps us maintain social bonds. However, excessive guilt, particularly when internalized from cultural or religious sources, can become toxic and lead to the repression of natural impulses and desires. This repression feeds directly into the shadow as we push away parts of ourselves that we judge as wrong or unworthy. Shame operates on an even more fundamental level, attacking our very sense of being. Unlike guilt, which says, "I did something bad," shame whispers, "I am bad." This profound feeling of unworthiness often originates in childhood experiences where we learn to hide or deny certain aspects of ourselves to maintain connection with caregivers or gain social acceptance. The shadow becomes a repository for these shameful parts, growing stronger as we continue to push away what we cannot bear to acknowledge. Religious and moral frameworks, while potentially valuable for ethical guidance, can sometimes intensify these feelings of guilt and shame. Many spiritual traditions have historically emphasized human fallibility and sinfulness, creating a complex relationship between spirituality and self-acceptance. The shadow often contains those aspects of ourselves that conflict with our religious or moral ideals, leading to internal struggle and psychological tension. The process of healing shame-based wounds requires a delicate balance of acknowledgement and compassion. When we begin to work with our shadow, we must be prepared to encounter these painful emotions without being overwhelmed by them. This involves developing a strong foundation of self-compassion and understanding that our perceived flaws and darknesses are part of our shared human experience. Moving beyond guilt requires a careful examination of our moral framework and the sources of our self-judgment. It's essential to distinguish between genuine ethical concerns and internalized messages that no longer serve our growth. The shadow often contains natural human impulses and desires that have been labeled as bad or wrong by external authorities, but which may actually be neutral or even positive when properly integrated. Working with guilt and shame in shadow work involves creating a safe internal space where all parts of ourselves can be acknowledged without judgment. This might involve dialogue with these emotions, exploring their origins, and gradually releasing their hold on our psyche. As we learn to accept our whole selves, including those aspects we once deemed unacceptable, the grip of shame and guilt begins to loosen. The healing process also involves recognizing that our shadow aspects often carry wisdom and strength that have been hidden behind walls of shame. For example, anger that we've learned to shame might actually contain valuable information about our boundaries and needs. Sexuality that we've learned to guilt might hold keys to our vitality and creative power. As we work with these emotions, we begin to understand that guilt and shame are not ultimate truths about who we are, but rather learned responses that can be unlearned. This doesn't mean abandoning all moral considerations, but rather developing a more nuanced and compassionate relationship with ourselves and our actions. Through this process, we can begin to transform our relationship with our shadow, moving from rejection and fear toward integration and wholeness. This transformation often leads to a profound shift in how we experience ourselves and the world. As we release the burden of excessive guilt and toxic shame, we free up enormous amounts of psychological energy that can be redirected toward growth and creative expression. The shadow, once a source of pain and self-rejection, can become a wellspring of authenticity and personal power. Lesson 6: The shadow is complementary to the persona. The relationship between the shadow and the persona represents one of the most fascinating dynamics within Carl Jung's understanding of the human psyche. While the shadow contains all that we reject or deny about ourselves, the persona is the face we present to the world, our social mask. These two aspects of our personality exist in a delicate dance of opposition and complementarity, each serving essential functions in our psychological makeup. The persona develops as our way of adapting to social expectations and cultural norms. It's the version of ourselves we've learned is acceptable and appropriate to show others. Like an actor's costume, we don this mask to navigate different social situations and roles. Being professional at work, nurturing as a parent, or sociable among friends. While the persona is often viewed negatively as being fake or inauthentic, Jung recognized its vital role in human interaction and social functioning. However, the stronger and more rigid our persona becomes, the more energy must be expended to maintain it, and the more powerful our shadow grows in opposition. This is because what we exclude from our conscious presentation of self doesn't simply disappear, it gets pushed into the shadow. For instance, someone who maintains a persona of being unfailingly kind and agreeable likely carries a shadow full of anger, assertiveness, and the capacity to say no. The complementary nature of these forces becomes apparent when we consider that both the persona and shadow contain valuable aspects of our personality. The persona's social adaptability and the shadow's raw authenticity both serve important functions. True psychological health comes not from identifying exclusively with either aspect, but from maintaining conscious awareness of both and allowing them to inform each other. Integration of the shadow and persona leads to more authentic self-expression. When we acknowledge our shadow qualities, our persona becomes more flexible and genuine. Instead of rigidly maintaining a false image, we can choose which aspects of ourselves to express in different situations while remaining true to our whole nature. This integration allows for a more nuanced and mature way of being in the world. The social implications of this integration are profound. As we become more comfortable with our full range of qualities, we develop greater empathy for other struggles and contradictions. We're less likely to project our disowned qualities onto others or to judge them harshly for displaying characteristics we've rejected in ourselves. This leads to more genuine connections and deeper relationships. Working with the shadow persona dynamic requires conscious effort and courage. It means examining our social masks and asking what they're protecting or hiding. It involves questioning whether our persona has become too rigid or defensive and whether we're suppressing important aspects of ourselves to maintain a particular image. This work often reveals that what we've been hiding might actually be valuable or necessary for our growth. The goal isn't to discard the persona. We need it for social functioning, but to make it more flexible and authentic by incorporating shadow elements. This might mean allowing ourselves to show vulnerability when we've always maintained a strong facade, or expressing anger when we've always presented as perfectly calm. The result is a more integrated personality that can move fluidly between different aspects of self while maintaining integrity. Understanding the complementary nature of shadow and persona helps us recognize that neither is inherently good or bad. They are both essential aspects of our wholeness. By working with both forces consciously, we can develop a more complete and authentic way of being in the world, one that honors both our social nature and our deeper truths. This integration leads to greater psychological freedom and the ability to express ourselves more fully in all areas of life. Lesson 7: The shadow can prevent people from reaching their full potential. The shadow aspect of our personality often acts as an invisible barrier between us and our highest aspirations. When left unacknowledged and unintegrated, these repressed parts of ourselves can manifest as self-sabotaging behaviors that consistently undermine our efforts to achieve success and fulfillment in various areas of life. One of the primary ways the shadow interferes with our potential is through unconscious self-sabotage patterns. These patterns might appear as procrastination, impulsive decisions, or a tendency to quit just when success seems within reach. For instance, a talented artist might repeatedly abandon projects before completion, or a promising professional might sabotage career opportunities through seemingly inexplicable behavior. These actions often stem from deep-seated beliefs about unworthiness or fear of success that reside in the shadow. The shadow's influence on creativity is particularly significant. Creative blocks often occur when we suppress our authentic expression due to internalized criticism or shame. Writers might struggle with writer's block, musicians might feel unable to compose, and artists might find themselves stuck in repetitive safe patterns rather than exploring new territories of expression. The shadow holds our wild, unconventional, and most innovative aspects. And when we deny these parts of ourselves, we also deny our creative potential. Relationship difficulties represent another area where the shadow can limit our potential. Unacknowledged shadow aspects often project onto others, creating patterns of conflict and misunderstanding. We might repeatedly choose partners who reflect our disowned qualities, or we might sabotage promising relationships due to unresolved fears and insecurities. These patterns can prevent us from experiencing deep, authentic connections with others. Professional growth can be severely hampered by shadow interference. Fear of power, success, or responsibility might cause people to remain in unfulfilling positions rather than pursuing advancement. Some might unconsciously underperform or create workplace conflicts that prevent career progression. The shadow might manifest as imposter syndrome, causing capable people to doubt their abilities and shy away from opportunities for growth. The shadow can also affect our physical well-being and vitality. Repressed emotions and unacknowledged aspects of self often manifest as physical symptoms or self-destructive behaviors. This might include addictive patterns, chronic health issues, or a general lack of energy and motivation. When we expend significant energy keeping parts of ourselves in the shadow, we have less energy available for growth and achievement. Learning and personal development can be significantly impacted by shadow aspects. Fear of failure or success, perfectionism, or deep-seated beliefs about intelligence and capability can prevent people from pursuing education or new skills. The shadow might manifest as resistance to learning, difficulty accepting feedback, or an inability to acknowledge and learn from mistakes. Financial prosperity can be another area where the shadow creates limitations. Unconscious beliefs about money, success, and worthiness often reside in the shadow and can create patterns of financial self-sabotage. People might unconsciously overspend, under-earn, or make poor financial decisions that keep them from achieving financial security and abundance. The shadow's influence on leadership potential is particularly noteworthy. Unacknowledged shadow aspects can manifest as either an excessive need for control or an inability to assert authority when needed. Leaders might struggle with delegation, decision-making, or maintaining healthy boundaries, all of which can limit their effectiveness and impact. The key to overcoming these limitations lies in conscious shadow work. By acknowledging and integrating these disowned parts of ourselves, we can release the energy bound up in repression and redirect it toward growth and achievement. This process requires courage, commitment, and often the support of qualified professionals who can help navigate the complex terrain of shadow work. As we integrate our shadow aspects, we begin to access more of our authentic power and potential, leading to greater fulfillment and achievement in all areas of life. Lesson 8: Embracing shadow can help people confront the past. The journey of confronting our past through shadow work represents one of the most profound paths to psychological healing and personal transformation. When we embrace our shadow aspects, we create a safe internal space to explore and process difficult memories, traumas, and unresolved emotions that have shaped our lives. Our past experiences, particularly those that have caused pain or discomfort, often become buried in our unconscious mind. These buried memories and emotions don't disappear. Instead, they continue to influence our behavior, relationships, and perception of the world. Through shadow work, we can shine a light on these hidden aspects of ourselves and begin the process of healing. The act of confronting the past through shadow work involves acknowledging and accepting not only what happened to us but also our reactions, coping mechanisms, and the parts of ourselves we developed in response to difficult experiences. This process often reveals family patterns and dynamics that have been passed down through generations. By recognizing these patterns, we can begin to understand how our ancestors' unresolved traumas and challenges have influenced our own psychological makeup. Generational healing becomes possible when we embrace our shadow. As we work through our own psychological material, we often discover that we're not just healing ourselves, but also addressing wounds that have been carried through our family line. This understanding can bring compassion for both ourselves and our ancestors, recognizing that many of the difficulties we face have roots that extend beyond our personal experience. The process of confronting the past through shadow work requires courage and patience. It often involves revisiting painful memories and feelings that we've long avoided. However, this time, we approach these experiences with new awareness and tools for processing them. Instead of being overwhelmed by past trauma, we can learn to hold space for our experiences while maintaining our adult perspective and resources. Working with the shadow also allows us to identify and transform the defensive patterns we developed in response to past hurts. These patterns might have served us well at one time, protecting us from overwhelming experiences, but they may now limit our ability to live fully in the present. By acknowledging and working with these patterns through our shadow, we can develop new, more adaptive ways of being. The reconciliation process with past events becomes possible when we embrace our shadow. This doesn't mean forgetting or minimizing difficult experiences, but rather developing a new relationship with them. Through shadow work, we can integrate these experiences into our life story in a way that acknowledges their impact while allowing us to move forward with greater wholeness and understanding. Memory processing takes on new depth when approached through shadow work. We begin to see how certain experiences have shaped our beliefs about ourselves and the world. This awareness allows us to question and revise these beliefs, creating space for new perspectives and possibilities. The shadow holds not only our difficult memories, but also the wisdom we've gained through surviving and learning from our experiences. As we embrace our shadow and confront our past, we often discover unexpected gifts and strengths that emerged from our challenges. These discoveries can transform our relationship with our history, allowing us to see how even difficult experiences have we create the possibility for genuine healing and transformation. We learn to hold both the light and dark aspects of our experience, understanding that both are essential parts of our human journey. This integration allows us to move forward with greater wholeness, carrying our past not as a burden but as a source of wisdom and strength. Final lesson: reach your fullest potential. The journey of shadow integration ultimately leads to reaching one's fullest potential, a state where we can access and utilize all aspects of our being. When we have done the difficult work of acknowledging, accepting, and integrating our shadow, we unlock tremendous potential for growth and authentic living. This final stage of shadow work focuses on practical implementation and maintaining the delicate balance we have achieved. Integration techniques form the cornerstone of realizing our potential. These include regular self-reflection through journaling, meditation, and active imagination exercises. The key is consistency, making these practices part of our daily routine rather than occasional activities. Through these techniques, we maintain awareness of our shadow aspects while simultaneously channeling their energy into productive endeavors. As we progress in our shadow work, we begin to notice profound changes in our relationships, career, and creative pursuits. The energy previously spent on repression becomes available for personal growth and achievement. Our relationships become more authentic as we no longer project our unacknowledged traits onto others. We develop greater empathy and understanding both for ourselves and those around us. Living authentically requires ongoing vigilance and commitment. Recognize that shadow work is not a destination but a continuous journey. Even after significant progress, new shadow aspects may emerge as we encounter different life challenges. The difference is that we now have the tools and understanding to work with these elements rather than fear them. Maintaining balance becomes crucial as we integrate our shadow aspects. This involves recognizing when to express different parts of ourselves and when to contain them. Not every shadow aspect needs full expression in every situation. Wisdom lies in discernment. The goal is not to swing from complete repression to unbridled expression, but to find the middle path that serves our highest good and the good of those around us. Personal growth strategies at this stage focus on embodying our whole selves while remaining socially responsible. This might involve choosing appropriate outlets for different aspects of our personality, such as creative pursuits, physical activities, or professional endeavors. For professional endeavors, we learn to channel our aggressive energies into assertiveness, our sexual energies into passion for life, and our darker emotions into depth of understanding and empathy. The transformed shadow becomes a source of power and creativity. What once threatened to undermine us now strengthens us. The energy previously used for repression becomes available for achievement and self-actualization. We find ourselves more capable of taking risks, expressing ourselves authentically, and pursuing our true calling. This integration allows us to access deeper levels of wisdom and intuition. Our inner voice becomes clearer as we no longer need to filter it through layers of denial and repression. We develop a more nuanced understanding of human nature and can navigate complex situations with greater skill and awareness. The fullest expression of our potential often manifests in unexpected ways. We might discover talents or interests we never knew we had, or find ourselves drawn to new paths we wouldn't have considered before. The integrated shadow brings gifts of creativity, courage, and authentic power that can transform our life's direction. As we reach toward our fullest potential, we become living examples of the transformative power of shadow work. Our journey inspires others and contributes to the collective healing of society. By embracing our whole selves, both light and dark, we demonstrate the possibility of living with greater authenticity, depth, and purpose. Reaching your fullest potential is not about achieving perfection but about embracing your complete humanity. It's about using all aspects of yourself, including those you once rejected, in service of your growth and the greater good. This is the ultimate gift of shadow work. The ability to stand fully in your power, embracing all that you are and using your whole self to create positive change in the world.